So I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting of February 16th, the Village of Romeo Board of Trustees. It is 7:01. Call this to order. Yes. So first off, we are holding a public hearing for the CDBG funds. Let me admit Shelley to the meeting here. So the purpose of the public hearing is to obtain the views of citizens concerning community development and housing needs as required by the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974 as amended. At this time, the public hearing will be conducted as an online meeting through this Zoom. Is there anybody who's attending this meeting who wants to make any public comment regarding community block grant funds? All right, hearing none, I'm going to close.
Good evening. I'm sorry. My name is Dory Vasquez Nolan, and I'm the Executive Director of Care House, the Macomb County Child Advocacy Center. Our main office is located in Mount Clemens. We also have a satellite office located in the city of Warren. Care House is the only agency in Macomb County that provides a comprehensive intervention, advocacy, and treatment response for child victims of sexual abuse, physical abuse, and for children who may have witnessed a violent act, as well as their non-offending family members. Our goal is to minimize the trauma for child victims of abuse and to support the child victim and family through the investigation and prosecution phases and provide support to begin the healing process. Care House is one of over 800 accredited child advocacy centers in the United States. We collaborate with all law enforcement jurisdictions in Macomb County, as well as the FBI, Homeland Security, and Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, as well as Children's Protective Services, the Macomb County Prosecutor's Office, and medical and mental health professionals. Many of the parents that come to Care House with their children disclose that they also were abused as children and never received help in dealing with their trauma. Many of them never even told. The abuse of their children often triggers the trauma all over again. Care House works with all non-offending family members as a whole to promote healing. And after the forensic interview, Care House offers follow-up services for the child victims and their families, intervening to promote healing and helping them to cope with all of the emotions that come with the disclosure of abuse, such as guilt, disbelief, fear, and anger. These services include crisis counseling, child safety assessments, parent and child support groups, trauma-focused therapy sessions, family advocacy, access to forensic medical examinations, a family pantry with cleaning supplies, baby items, PPEs, school supplies, etc. Holiday assistance for our families who are struggling during the holidays, referrals to other needed community services, and as the local counsel in Macomb County for the Michigan Children's Trust Fund, Care House also offers child abuse prevention, education, and training for professionals and the community at large. Families are never charged for any of the services that they receive at Care House, and I'm very proud to report, according to our most recent independent financial audit, over 88 cents of every dollar that comes to Care House is specifically devoted to serving children and families. Since we opened in 1996, we've conducted over 8,600 forensic interviews, and 87 of those children were residents of the Village of Romeo. In 2019, we conducted 757 forensic interviews with 8 children being residents of the Village of Romeo. And last year, we conducted 664 forensic interviews with 7 children residing in the Village of Romeo. We do depend on the support of the community, and we're so grateful as we enter our 25th year of serving families to have that support to provide a voice for child victims and a safe place for them to be heard. We're very grateful for the longstanding support of the Village of Romeo. This year, we respectfully request consideration for funding in the amount of $1,800 to support services for 3 child victims and their families who would be qualified residents of the Village of Romeo. Of course, we'd be grateful for any amount you are able to allocate. For more information about Care House, we invite you to visit our website at www.mccarehouse.org and to follow our Facebook page. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Trustees, do you have any questions for Ms. Vasquez Nolan from Care House?
Not here.
Okay.
All right. Hearing none, Dory, thank you very much. I appreciate you attending the meeting. We will be voting later for the funding amounts on our agenda. Okay, and so I have also Dick Rosenberg. He's here, I believe, from Samaritan House. Mr.
Yes, I am
Rosenberg, you
here.
have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Everybody hear me all right?
Mhm.
Okay. I'm Dick
Yes.
Rosenberg. Okay, I'm here this evening representing Samaritan House, the food pantry. I currently serve as the chairman of the board for the board of directors for Samaritan House. And here in support of the grant application that we have in front of you. Samaritan House, as you know, is a food pantry that serves the northwest corner of Macomb County. Last year, we were happy to serve 81 different families in the village of Romeo. So we have quite a bit of activity in the village of Romeo. Our headquarters building and pantry, of course, are down on Van Dyke between 28 and 29 Mile Road. Our purpose basically is to provide food support for low and very low income families in the community that we serve. So we're pleased to do that. Last year, as you all know, has been a challenge. We saw about a 50% increase in the number of families we served going into the early summer as the Covavax or the Cova infection got to everybody basically, but that has leveled out. We had to make a lot of changes to support things and provide safety for our volunteers as well as for our clients. And we worked through that. And we're really grateful to the community because we saw an overwhelming outpouring of both financial and food aid coming in from the community around the Washington, Romeo, Bruce area. So grateful for that. That allowed us to get through the year in reasonably good shape. So we appreciate that. We have a request for $1,000 tonight. I know money is tight, but we certainly appreciate the money that we've received over the years and look forward to continuing support of the village of Romeo. Welcome to answer any questions if the board has them.
I thank you, Mr. Rosenberg. Were there any questions from any of the trustees? All right. Once again, we'll be voting on the expenditures of the appropriations of those funding later. Certainly, you're welcome to stick around for the rest of the meeting, or you can reach out to me tomorrow or to Clerk Trapp if you need to. I have two others that have raised their hands. I do not have an organization that they're with, but the first one is Tina Vang. Tina, are you here for CDBG fund grants?
Yes, I'm representing Turning Point.
Turning Point, okay.
Yes.
I'll give you the floor, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Tina, and I'm the director for our community advocacy and housing programs at Turning Point. I'm here as a representative for our shelter program tonight to request $1,000 in community block grant money from the Village of Romeo to assist in the provision of shelter services for survivors and their families of domestic and sexual violence from Romeo. Turning Point has been a part of the community for over 40 years. We are a domestic and sexual violence support organization inside of Macomb County. Turning Point Shelter provides emergency shelter to Romeo residents fleeing violence in their homes. In the fiscal year of 2020, Turning Point provided 939 shelter bed nights to 19 adult survivors, including 13 children. We provided shelter, basic needs. Some examples are clothing, diapers, formula and toiletries, meals, crisis intervention, case management, children's supportive services and advocacy, program advocacy, and support groups. In addition to our shelter, Turning Point provided the following services to Romeo residents. 4 individuals received help with PPO filing, 6 people received counseling and advocacy services, 1 person received legal advocacy assistance, 1 Romeo survivor received forensic nurse exams following sexual assault. 1 Romeo survivor received crisis intervention, information, and referral from our first response team following an assault. 9 Romeo callers received assistance through Turning Point's 24-hour hotline. And even during COVID-19, we are offering a comprehensive array of services. All of our services are free, including our 24/7, 365 hotline, our emergency shelter, home-based community and housing advocacy for residents leaving shelter, individual and group counseling, assistance with filing personal protection orders, forensic nurse exams to survivors of sexual assault, legal advocacy, personal protection orders, prevention education, and Turning Point has a secondhand rose stores to assist survivors with basic needs free of cost. Instead of asking for funding support, I would rather be here to inform you that there is no longer violence within the homes of residents in Romeo of Macomb County. Unfortunately, Turning Point's 24-hour crisis line and the fact that our shelter is full most of the time demonstrates daily that family violence continues, contributes to homelessness, and that our services are greatly needed. Turning Point's commitment to ending domestic and sexual violence cannot happen without the support of our community. Please help us to maintain this crucial and viable service by supporting the continuation of grant funding support. If awarded the $1,000 requested of Romeo, Turning Point will be able to provide approximately 30 nights of shelter who identify themselves as Romeo residents. Thank you for the opportunity to address this council and for your consideration and providing part of the solution for a community response to domestic and sexual violence. I'm welcome to answer any questions if you guys have any.
Thank you, Ms. Vang. Is there any questions or comments from any of the trustees? All right, hearing none. I don't know if we have anybody on the line for interfaith volunteer caregivers. Another request.
Actually, that is me, Village
Okay.
President.
All right, thank you, Mr. Andrews. Is Scott Andrews, is that your name?
Yes.
Okay, I'll give you the floor. Go ahead.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Scott Andrews. I work for Interfaith Volunteer Caregivers. I actually was at your board meeting in person last year, and it's amazing that Zoom allows everyone to conduct business this way these days. So our organization's been around Macomb County for 29 years, helping seniors and disabled adults. In your meeting chat, I put a link to our website, but I genuinely wanted to thank the Board of Trustees, Village President and Clerk for the work you do in these challenging and difficult times. Having public servants that represent and care about others is it's just a great thing. The number of older adults in Macomb County is rapidly increasing. The need for support services due to the frailties of age, chronic health conditions, and disabilities is growing dramatically and will continue to do so well into the future. For the past 29 years, our organization has been providing free basic assistance to hundreds of frail and older physically challenged adults, helping them remain safely in their homes. Our organization does assistance such as helping the older disabled adults, transportation, chores, respite breaks, errands, and even just, as you can imagine, over the last 9 months, phone calls for those who are homebound and lonely. The CDBG request is specifically geared toward providing free chore and repair services. Our organization has offered that on a smaller scale for a number of years, but the last 5 years, we've been putting in formal CDBG funding requests to increase the number of low-income residents we can reach and hopefully grow the program. We are confident that by getting some additional CDBG funding is allowing us just to reach more people who are struggling and support, giving more support. The help that we can sometimes provide may be the difference that allows an older or disabled neighbor to remain safe at home, which is the name of our program. We appreciate the time speaking at your village board meeting today. I further appreciate the partnership we've had with your village for the past few years in your village board granting us some small CDBG allocations over the last few years. I hope that you will continue to look at our program favorably. And if you know of any seniors who might utilize our services and could use some assistance, even rides to the doctor and other things that are not under a CDBG purview, please let us know or refer them to our website. And I just wanted to thank you again. You do have a request for $148 of CDBG funds, but as others have said, any contribution or simply the publicity of being able to speak to your council and live stream is greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Appreciate your time, Mr. Enders. Were there any questions from any of the trustees?
Yes, I have one question for the gentleman.
Mr. Fowler, go ahead, Mr. Fowler.
What type of repairs do you do to seniors' homes?
So, Mr. Fowler, all of our help is done by volunteers, unpaid volunteers. So it would be those sort of retired handymen, but the things that we typically would do would be changing storm windows, screens, or furnace filters. Some seniors, as you can imagine, may even struggle getting into their own basement. It would be replacing locks, a wobbly railing, trying to make that secure for life safety. Recently, we had a senior, not in Romeo, but a senior who, after all the years of being in her home, she finally needed something to grab onto just for the 3 steps from her driveway into the kitchen. And we had someone come out, measure, and put in a 3-step handrail, if you will. So we also, in a non-pandemic time, will come over and volunteers will do some housekeeping, not on a regular basis, but as requested and as needed. And then, as you can imagine, a little bit of repairing an electrical outlet, cleaning out a gutter. So small things that are usually a 2-hour or less project. And occasionally the volunteers may be able to eyeball it and can suggest that it really will need a professional and it's not a quick fix. But hopefully it is something that one of our volunteers can tackle.
Well, thank you. Yeah, because I know CDBG funds are mostly a brick and mortar allocation. And you seem to have hit on some of the things that are definitely needed for some of the repairs. Now,
And I was going to say, trustee, so I even occasionally am very grateful that a lady for 3 days in a row has beeping coming in her basement. She can't get down there, and thankfully found it was just a battery for a carbon monoxide detector. But it's great whether it's, I said, the filter or a wobbly step or even lights that people. My parents should not get up on a chair and try to replace anything above their head. So it's just little things that allow them to maybe not have to go into assisted living and stay longer in their home.
Well, those are the things that count, especially when you reach age. We're all getting there.
Yes, sir.
Well, thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Anders. Okay, the last funder that we had a request come from was McCrest. Is there anybody in the meeting representing that organization? All right, then hearing nothing else, I'm going to close the public hearing at 7:19, and then I'm going to open the regular Board of Trustees meeting. Can we please call this meeting to order and begin our Pledge of Allegiance? So please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of
America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Trapp, would you please call the roll for me?
Bartholomew.
Here.
Edwards.
Here.
Fowler.
Yes.
Hart.
Hart here.
Parker.
Parker's here.
Poznansky.
Poznansky here.
President Malzahn.
I'm here as well.
All right. We have everybody's here, 7 in attendance.
Great, thank you. And next up on your agenda is the approval of the minutes from our January 19th meeting. You received a copy in your packet. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes.
There was a motion by Bartholomew. Do we have support?
Support from Edwards.
Support by Edwards. Any discussion?
Yes, I'd like to point out some things. Under the officer's report, where it says under the president report, it says, please see attached report. The attached report that we received seems to be a lot more than what the president actually spoke on. So I think that needs to be clarified as to what portions of this was actually in the presidential report and what was part of maybe the presentations beforehand.
It was both the year in review and the president's report were combined into one.
Yeah, but the graphs and everything that was included in our packet, I thought was talked about in one of the presentations, not in your report.
Correct. But those graphs don't appear in the meeting minutes. I suppose what you're saying is that they shouldn't be in your packet.
Or separate in the packet. Yeah, that would be correct. Because
Okay.
we just got a packet all stapled together and it says presidential or president's report, January 19th.
Yes. Okay, but there isn't any incorrect information. You're just pointing it out that you have too much information.
Well, yeah, and information that wasn't in the president's report, and then some things weren't weren't said or discussed in the meeting.
It should be page 1 and 2 of what is in your report.
So page 1 and 2.
Of what's in your packet, yes. Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there was a few things that weren't discussed, but I mean, it was probably just oversight and reading off the letter.
Okay. Any other discussion on the minutes?
Parker, again, on the motion to take the 5-minute recess, it said that everyone voted for, which also wasn't correct. President Malzahn voted no on that, so that should be corrected.
Okay, we'll make that note.
That's it for me.
Anything else? That was it for you? Any other trustees have any questions or comments on the minutes? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. You have to call the roll. I'm out of touch. Zoom me. Sorry.
Okay. Bartholomew,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Poznansky,
Poznansky, yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Hart,
Hart, yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
President Malzahn.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Okay. In your packet, you have the bills for this month. You have vendor bills in the amount of $24,846.49. And then you have the check register report in the amount of $151,598.93.
Motion to pay the bills?
Motion by Bartholomew. We have support.
Poznansky, support.
Okay. Any other discussion?
A couple things, Parker. Going down the check registry, just for clarification, there's a couple line items that come up under like check number. It says like 17E or 18E, and it talks about a Chase card service. What is that?
I'm sorry. Are you looking at the
check registry for the village, checks dated from 1/21.
I believe that would be the village credit card. It's a Chase credit card for incidental expenditures or those things that we have to order online that we don't order a check for.
Okay, so they don't, so I guess then they're all going to a vendor number 9941. Is that just like a generic, or is that for something exactly?
That's the general ledger number that Chase credit card is assigned to. The vendor number.
Okay, so I mean, so there's no clarification on what those purchases are for then?
Well, there's monthly statements that are on file in the village offices that we get and we reconcile with all the receipts from those expenditures.
Okay, yeah, I was just looking for clarification. And then the one other thing on there would be when you're comparing the check registry to the vendor activity, should those numbers, totals match?
Should the totals match?
So
Well, there
like,
are.
what we're talking, we've got Detroit Salt Company on the check registry twice. And then you go over to the vendor report for that time frame, and it only accounts for one of the checks or one of the payments that's on the check registry.
211.
So February 4th, there's Detroit Salt Company for $2,436 and some change. And then again on like 217, Detroit Salt Company for $240 or $2,446 and 12. And it's only noted on the vendor report or activity report once for the 217 date. So I was just trying to clarify, should those match? So should it be almost 4,900 for Detroit Salt Company?
I went to vendor code 0980. It's definitely a Rebecca question since she does the payables on here. And so I don't have an answer. All I can do is pose the question to her and try and get you an answer if it was just in the timing of when it came in, or if it was invoiced to two separate general ledger numbers. I don't know the answer to that, but we can certainly ask.
Okay. Thank you. That was it.
Okay. Any other discussion on the bills?
Poznanski, a question.
Yes.
On the check register, the first item is 21st Century Media, Michigan. Is that the Macomb Daily?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I see two invoices on here. What are these two for? The second one's about just over halfway down the middle of it.
Right. I see one for $228.25 and one for $241.40, right? So I'd have to check the receipt from those publications to know what exactly was published on that date.
Okay. So we're going to continue posting with Macomb Daily. We're not going to go local with the Record newspaper. Is that the decision you're making?
I don't know. Is that a bills discussion item, or is that something that you wanted me to ask Clerk Trapp? Or are you asking her yourself right now?
Would you like, I can direct it to her if you'd like.
But I'm just not really sure if that would, are you questioning the bill, or are you questioning where we're publishing it at?
Both.
Okay. Well, the bill
I would like to know what the two separate invoices are
on
for.
those dates. Yes. Catherine, did you want to address Trustee Poznanski's concern about where you're publishing the things?
Okay, yes, like President Malzahn said, we will have to look into that since we weren't notified prior to this meeting of what the question was in regards to these expenditures. And then I would be able to better explain to you what publications those were in regards to.
Okay, thank you. So is it your choice to continue publishing with Macomb Daily and not with the Record newspaper?
I don't know if that's an appropriate bills item question. I don't know if see it as a choice. I just go with what is timely for the publications needed.
Okay, I can ask it again during public forum if that's what you would prefer.
Okay, yes, because I would I believe we're on the bills item in the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so were there any questions regarding any items on the bills? I just wanted to make a quick note. You did receive an extra report in your packet. It's called the remittance advice. And it was, so that there was 3 line items on there. So Rebecca suggested that we insert this report to answer questions that came up like last month when Trustee Poznanski pointed out that the numbers didn't match, and that was because there were credits there that didn't reflect. So that's why the numbers were off. Again, if we know that these questions are, happening in advance, we can certainly address those, before a meeting so that we have all the information. If there's something that you're questioning, not a problem. Otherwise, we're happy to research it and get back to you as soon as we can. But that's why the bills were off from last month.
Thank you for looking into that. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And just to add to what President Malzahn had says that, yes, it does reflect in the last month's report where the credits were and what the credits were. So that's why the totals were off. But according to our accounting review, they are correct. So your invoices and everything are correct, and it does reflect where the credits were. So the numbers are not off per se. The accounting is correct.
Okay, let's go ahead and take a roll call on the bill expenditures. We had a motion by Bartholomew. Who supported that?
Poznansky.
Okay.
Okay. Vote Bartholomew,
Yes.
Poznansky,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Fowler. Trustee Fowler,
No.
Hart,
Hart, yes.
President Malzahn.
Yes,
Motion carries 6-1.
thank you. Okay, we have an agenda that's been drafted before you. Can we get a motion to approve the agenda?
Poznansky,
motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Poznansky, we have support?
Support.
Support by Edwards. Were there any changes that anybody needed to make?
Yes, Christine, I have a question regarding this.
Go ahead.
At the last meeting that we had, you had a number of callers on Zoom that wanted to speak but had to wait for the public comment. And by the time we got to that part of the agenda or the meeting agenda, they had all hung up, so they didn't get an opportunity to express whatever concern that they had, village residents. So back to this public forum again for agenda items only. I'd like to make a motion to remove agenda items only and open it up to the public so they can actually have a voice heard at the beginning of this thing so we don't lose any residents like we have lost over the last several meetings by the time the meeting got over it and we got to that part.
Well, again, Zach, we can talk about that and discuss that under the rules of procedures. That's where our agenda is, the basic format is created. It was on our agenda, of course, last month, and we tabled it due to a time constraint. And I know that sometimes it's, sometimes these meetings are a bit long. I do encourage everybody to tune in to the entire meeting so that they have a clear understanding of what's going on in our community. I don't have necessarily an issue for public comments one way or the other, as long as we're consistent. So if Poznansky wishes to amend her motion with support by Edwards to remove the agenda items only, we can certainly do that for tonight and then review that under our rules of procedures. But we're only going to have public comments once. So whether you want to do it at line item number 8 or you want to do it at 13.
Well, I think, yes, the once would be perfect, but if we could get the public forum and open it back up to where people could actually ask a question and the council respond to that question, as opposed to in the public comments, they're just being heard with no response from council at all.
Well, again, Zach, this is a business meeting.
I understand it's a business meeting.
Our public to attend and be, aware of what we're talking about, but this is not a town hall meeting. This is a business meeting. So I need to just have some control and some order. So the agenda allows us to do that. Not that we're silencing anybody. We're giving everybody ample opportunity to talk either to the agenda items before we discuss them or after on any topic that they wish to in their 3 minutes.
And regarding a business meeting, our public, our residents are involved in every aspect of what's going on here with your administration. And if they have valid questions, which the majority of them do, that is part of our business, is to listen to them and give a response to them. Not just on what you have here on paper. We are elected to listen to them and to conduct ourselves and react if we need to react to what they're talking about. That's part of our business. Public service. Our business is not public service.
Our business is to act on behalf of the residents
Correct.
Yes, and we're giving them 2 opportunities to speak, Zach. That's why they're on here twice. They have 2 opportunities to the meeting.
But in
But if you
public
want
forum,
to limit it to 1, we can limit it to 1.
I would like to limit it to 1, but eliminate the agenda items only on the public forum. That's what I'm saying. Let them come and speak. Let them, if they have something regarding the agenda, let them speak to the agenda. If it's something that they would like to get on the agenda, but didn't have the opportunity, or you didn't feel that you wanted to put it on the agenda, they can come and speak to that aspect too. We used to have it open to where our residents could come and speak.
Right, we do that on number 8, and we do that on number 13. There are 2 opportunities here.
On number 8, you're correct, the public forum, but it's agenda items only, period.
And then there's number 13 for public comments.
But on the public comments, they're just talking. There's no response. Yeah. Usually when somebody speaks to somebody, they want to hear a response to the question that they're asking. I mean,
Well, again, depending on what the issue and what their concerns are that are being raised, we may not have the answers or the ability to answer, but we can certainly note their concerns under both topic 8 and 13 and get back to them in a timely manner. So again, I'm going to just circle back, and we have the approval of the agenda. Trustee Poznanski, did you wish to amend your motion to remove agenda items only and then strike number 13? Or do you want to leave it with the 2 options?
Can you explain to me why I would need to strike 13, why I couldn't just take agenda items only off of 8?
I don't need to speak twice.
Because we have a public forum. That's where the public is invited to speak to us.
Okay, and I guess I'm not understanding, if we have it on here twice, why can't I keep it on there twice and just take agenda items only off?
Isn't this going to be in our discussion later in the agenda?
It is for the rules and procedures, Bob, of how do we want our agendas.
And that includes our agenda. Can we discuss that then?
This is an argument that we don't need to be wasting meeting time having right now over if we're going to have 1 or 2. Again, the public is invited to speak as the agenda is presented twice.
Okay, I will hold my motion as it stands for tonight.
Okay, can you please call the roll?
Parker, I'd like to input, please. I would like to add under new business. I would, for discussion, I would like to bring up the marijuana business ordinance. And President Pro Tem, please.
Trustee Parker, I'd like to clarify what do you need to talk about these tonight? Are you looking for an update, or do you have some information that you need to add? Because again,
Information, please. Yes.
And what exactly are you adding?
If you want to discuss it now, or do you want to discuss it under the business? There's some clarification, not clarification. There's some discrepancies in our ordinance that probably should be addressed and looked at.
Well, it would have been appreciated to have notification before we drafted the agenda so that we could have it in the packet.
Yeah,
before us so that we knew.
I didn't have the information before Tuesday, Christine.
Okay, so then we should add it next month. If this is not a time sensitive matter, we don't want to talk about this on our agenda without the ability to have a reasonable research.
I believe it is somewhat time sensitive. It'll be brief.
The Pro Tem
Both.
and
The marijuana business ordinance.
the Pro Tem is urgent tonight too?
I believe so, yes.
Poznanski, I will adjust my motion to allow for the 2 new business items for discussion only.
Trustee Poznanski, I'm sorry, did you say under new business?
Yes.
We still have support by Edwards for those 2 agenda items to be added for discussion only.
Yes.
All right. Call the roll, Catherine?
Poznanski,
Poznanski, yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Hart,
Hart, yes.
President Malzahn,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Bartholomew,
Yes.
Fowler.
No.
Motion carries 6-1.
Thank you. We already heard from our CDBG funding request for the special presentation, so I'm going to hop over those slides. And I'm going to just briefly mention under correspondence, we had an MSU extension, been corresponding with Terry Gibbs from MSU. The information that you see on your screen right now. So quickly, the Village of Romeo has been notified that we have a gypsy moth infestation. I think I mentioned that a few meetings ago. The MSU extension is putting on a free educational webinar. It's Tuesday, February 23rd from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock. The link is there. I'm going to ask Clerk Trapp to please put this up on our website or at least on the calendar page if anybody is interested in joining us. I did ask the tree board to meet. I believe they met in my absence on Friday to discuss this. I've asked them to really look into this since tree is their thing, and this is obviously affecting about 185 acres of trees here in the Village of Romeo. And so they're going to discuss that and then bring a recommendation of what we should do. I believe this expenditure, it could vary depending on how many municipalities decide to move forward with this spray. It's not just Romeo. There's a big infestation that's happening in the whole county. But our share right now should not be more than $27,000. But it's $27,000. That's a significant amount of money that we did not budget for. But I just wanted to give everybody the opportunity to at least join this webinar so that everybody had the information when we talk about this next month. So if anybody from the public is interested and you cannot read this slide or get this link here, please contact me or contact Clerk Trapp and we'll try and get you that information so that you can join on.
Thanks,
That was our
Christine.
correspondence. Okay. So we have a public forum, agenda items only. Was there anybody attending this meeting that wishes to address any or speak on any of the agenda items? You can raise your hand. You can unmute yourself. You can call my office phone number, which is 752-3565. I'm at extension 3. All right. I am not seeing any communication, so I'm assuming that there is none. If anybody does call me in a little bit later, we'll still try and get their comments. So moving on to our officer reports. Let's see, the first out will be my president's report for February 16th. The DDA announced that the DIA has chosen the Village Hall and the Village Park as locations for 2 of the artwork images to be located in the village for the 2021 DIA Inside Out program. I think this is the 3rd season that the Village of Romeo has been lucky enough to have the DIA participate in our community. And so we're certainly looking forward to that again. I believe that program, those artworks should be May, June install, and then through the summer months. So look for that, at least one here on Village Hall and one on the Village Park. If you have any other questions, please contact Lisa Hall at the DDA. She's the liaison between the DIA people. The Eagle permit has been obtained so that work can begin on well number 5. Apparently there's a shortage of the casing. But hopefully we will commence the drilling here shortly and get well number 5 up and running. We are still only using one well because well number 2 is inactive. Bruce Township and the Village of Romeo have agreed upon and arranged for our joint community paper shred and electronics recycling day. We've chosen Saturday, May 1st, 2021. We're going to hold it at the Romeo Parks and Rec Center at 361 Morton Street in the front parking lot area. This area should be large enough to accommodate both vendors, and both the Bruce and Romeo residents are invited to participate. It'll be sort of drive-through style. that parking lot was chosen because we could have both trucks sitting side by side. So depending on which item that you're bringing, any residents can just sort of drive through. Last time we were lucky enough to have some serve students help people unload their cars. And it should be the same with the recycling. The recycling portion of it is going to be done with priority waste. That's the vendor the Bruce Township arranged for. I'm going to give you a link soon, because they have specific items, a few items that cannot be dropped off. But they also will make arrangements for some additional items that may be oversized. They have a phone number that you can call, that if you know you want to bring it in, you can discuss it directly with them, and they'll make arrangements for it to be picked up on that day. So look for that priority waste link. Again, I'll try and put it up on Facebook and on our Facebook page, and then I'll get that out to the trustees in case you want to share it with any of the residents. U.S. Congresswoman Lisa McClain and a member of her staff visited the Village Hall on January 26th. She's very interested and dedicated to ensuring that regular interaction between our residents and elected leaders is shared so that her office in Washington, D.C. understands and can offer assistance when possible to what is going on in our community. We discussed at length the Ford engine plant in particular and its status. So she's hoping to get the D.C. weight involved to help anyway lessen the blow of that plant closure the end of 2022. In Romeo's annexation request for Mr. Zahowski, his Armada Township parcels is tentatively scheduled for the March 18th County Commissioners full board meeting and public hearing. If anyone is interested in attending that, it's in Mount Clemens. I don't know if they're meeting remotely on Zoom yet or if it's in person, depending on what the restrictions say, but I'll try and get you that information if you wish to attend that meeting. That's it for my report for this month. Clerk Trapp.
Yes, wanted to announce that applications are now being accepted for the marijuana business licenses. I will be accepting applications until Monday, February 22nd. Information is here at the office and also on our website, or you can email or call me. I have been getting a lot of phone calls. So there has been interest. We still have masks available at the front door of the Village Hall. So far, though, we probably distributed well over 45,000 masks to our community and those in need, including our nursing homes, libraries, and churches. And I also want to pass along a reminder on behalf from Tim Metz, our Director of Department of Public Works. He asked that I pass along that please, when plowing your street or your driveway and sidewalk, please do not put the snow back into the road. He asked, I know it's no fun, but if the snow you plow goes back onto your property, much appreciated. And that is all I have. Thank you.
Okay, Treasurer Maddox, I think you are on the call. Do you have a report?
Enclosed, I put in, which is the annual information statement from Bedzinski and Company, which is our municipal financial advisors on the 2014 refunding bond. And just to let us be aware, to make note of, is that no additional payment of principal can be paid or paid off prior to refinance October 1st of 2023. So if we could just make note of that. And then the 2010, the general judgment bond was paid in 2020. Also, I had a conference call with our banker, and all the funds are currently with one bank. We're not earning any interest. There are options that are out there available, which are long-term. And currently, we're not seeking any investments until the rates increase. So again, just to be mindful that all the funds are secure and with one bank. And then just an update with Point and Pay, which is our online payment processing. I generated a report from the beginning of instituting Point and Pay from January 2020. So for January to February 9th of our utility billing processing and all the receipts going into Point and Pay with the online processing fee revenue is $4,100. So I'm excited to make that announcement. The online payment processing has been working well. I'm not aware of any issues or concerns. And that concludes my report. And if there are any questions pertaining to the enclosed packet of information, I can direct any of those questions to Benzinski and Company, and then they will be able to provide any report or communication with any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Sherry. Let's move on to our trustee reports. Trustee Edwards, anything to report?
No, none here.
Trustee Hart?
Yes, I wanted to report that I had attended the tree board meeting on the 12th, and we listened to a presentation from Terry Gibb, representing MSU and Macomb. The board did make a motion to make a recommendation to our board that we would follow the guidelines or the recommendations of the county. As you had mentioned, I think right now it's not budgeted, but the cost would be like around $27,000, which is not budgeted. The affected area is from, I think it was Gates to Benjamin, Morton Street to Main Street in that area. They're going to put together some PSA information. And Ruth with MIT TV was going to do something, because there's a lot, even though you're not maybe in that acreage that they're looking to spray, if we so decide to do, there's a lot we can do just as residents in identifying what the egg mass looks like. And if you scrape it off and either burn it or put it in soap water, just residents themselves can do a lot. And it kind of goes through information of where they like to hide. It's even on vehicles and that type of thing. So besides, I'm glad you're going to put that on the website. There is that free webinar you do have to register. That's going to be on the, I think it's the you said the 23rd, 22nd, I'm not sure. But I would encourage people, and then it will be, if you don't make it, it's at 1:00 when the presentation is going to go. I am going to be on there, but it's my understanding that it'll be a video that we can share with residents as well to get that information out. So at least that's something we should do as residents, be aware of that. And there's a lot we can do just ourselves as well. And we're going to be putting this in an agenda, I believe, for next month. So that's where we would do that.
All right. Thank you, Bob. Trustee Fowler?
No, there's nothing. Thank you.
Trustee Poznanski?
Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Mhm.
Okay. I am 6 classes into my zoning administrator certificate program. I've had 3 online, 3 self-paced, learning a lot of new things. I was also able to participate or listen to the marijuana seminar. There was over 600 participants in this, ranging from people in the schools to municipalities. A lot of great information, things that I even was learning new information up to date. So I really appreciated them doing that for us. Just giving a heads up that I'm taking another course that given by the Michigan Municipal League at the end of the month. It's a 2-day course. Some of the stuff I've already had courses on, but it's always good to brush up, learn new things. And last but not least, our trustee talk, where everyone is always welcome to ask questions and we will get the answers when we can. Still not able to meet in person. I was trying to hold out, hoping that with this last order we could. So at this point, unfortunately, we're going to move it online. Not really what I want to do, but look for us online this month. Thank you.
All right. Trustee Bartholomew?
Nothing at this time.
Trustee Parker?
I'd like to thank the Romeo DPW again for doing a great job with the snow this morning. It was excellent. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Fowler, did you want to talk about the Planning Commission meeting?
Yeah, just a little bit. We had our Planning Commission review of 2020, and we talked about the accomplishments. We reappointed our board, Chairman Jim, and we have a new board member. It's Nolan. He filled a vacancy, which was on the board. Our board member, Stevens, had a big concern regarding the trash in the DDA area, and we had a discussion about that. We do have stuff on the books to have it enforced by the police, so that was our recommendation, to have them start ticketing if necessary in that area. There's a bunch of trash coming out of the dumpsters and people aren't picking up their stuff. So our board member Stevens was quite concerned about that in the DDA area. Also, let's see what else I got written down here. And that's basically it. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Yes, we also went over the registration for inspection for rental properties and the blight, and we sent that to council for their review and discussion. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Committee reports. I do not believe the sidewalk committee met, so we have nothing to report there. All right, we can move on to unfinished business. We tabled our rules of procedure from last month to this month. Whoops, sorry, my keyboard is moving my slide presentation forward here. So let's go back to this one. Okay, I did ask for initial input, any concerns or areas of that you would like to see changes from the trustees. I heard a reply from Trustee Parker, who wished to have his comments heard this evening. And Trustee Hart mentioned one item that I told him to go ahead and bring up this evening as well. So I'm going to sort of open it up to the floor for comments and feedback on the document that you have in your packet for the updated rules of procedure. Anybody want to open it up for discussion?
I guess I can, just my one simple change that I recommend.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, Trustee Hart, go ahead.
Conduct of discussion, which is on page 8. It's talking about going through and before we go into discussion to make a motion. Just in my experience, a lot of times there might be some clarification, not necessarily a discussion, but if someone's presenting some information. So I just recommended that at the end of the 4th line, the chair shall first ask for a motion from council, and in the parentheses, just add after any clarifications. That's it. And then that was the only change. But I think that would give us the opportunity to get clarification, because sometimes you need that before you could make a motion. That's all that I saw.
All right. Thank you for your input. Input from any other trustees? All right.
Christine, I didn't have that in my packet. I was looking for it.
It was in your packet from last month, and then I emailed it several times, Zach.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
Yeah.
Or a motion to approve the rules of procedures as presented?
Parker, I'd like to
With the
speak.
change? I'm sorry?
Parker, I'd like to speak.
Okay, go ahead, Justin.
Clarification, are we voting for rules of procedures for all the boards with this? Or is this going to be presented to each board to adopt how they see fit?
There are several boards that have their own bylaws, and this does not govern their bylaws. The Planning Commission, for instance, has its own bylaws. But for the most part, the tree board and the other independent functioning boards and commissions, this would be their suggested rules of procedures. This is a policy. This is not the law. It's not an ordinance, and there's a clear difference between a policy and an ordinance, just so that you're aware of that. So this is just suggested guidelines that we're all approving, and that that's what we're going to follow.
Okay.
Does that clarify that for you, Justin?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we're not making decisions for, planning commission and whatnot.
No, they have their own bylaws.
Okay, great. And like I emailed you, I think some of this is a little bit excessive. I think keeping our current rules of procedures with maybe some addition for online meetings would be best at this time.
Well, that's pretty much all that was changed was, well, there were some words that were changed that Mr. Clark suggested, but the discussion and voting, and then the public comment portion and the online meetings.
Yeah, and then like under the agenda presentation, preparation, I'm sorry, number 3, where we're looking at combining all 3 of those sections, the minutes, the bills, and the agenda. I think that's going to end up turning this into a lot longer process, because then doesn't some of that have to drop down then to new business where we could easily clarify any discrepancies?
No, most communities use a consent agenda to save time at the meetings, but certainly if any of the board members have any items or concerns within those 3 agenda items, then you just call them out separately, just like we do now. We're just suggesting that we don't have to do that if there's proper communication prior to a meeting. If there's some questions that can be answered regarding, the 2 line items that you had for the salt, an email in advance so we could give you the proper answer so that you would know. We can do all of that even prior to the meeting, and that unless there's some specific items that you want to discuss at a business meeting, we can just take care of it all in one line item and save time. That's
Yeah,
why we do
I guess the problem with some of that is we don't get everything until Thursday night, and then it's not even enough time to add it or change it before a Monday meeting. And then, it does say on the consent agenda, number 3, that it would be added to the regular agenda for discussion. So then I just feel that would drag it out, my personal thought there.
But that's pretty much what we're doing now. We're talking about each one of these things individually when that comes up, and taking care of and answering your questions.
Yeah,
what I'm suggesting is that if we keep it as a consent agenda, we don't have to do it that way. If you have questions, we certainly can address them, and it gives you the latitude then to add it.
So you're saying under consent agenda, we can make corrections under item 3 and approve it then, or if it goes too long, we'll add it to the regular business. Is that my understanding?
Right. If there's something within there that needs to be called out because you need clarification on it, you would just say, I need to remove this from the consent agenda, and we'll add it to the regular agenda to discuss it and get it approved.
I like it the way it currently
But
is.
it wouldn't be on new business or that. It would just be, if there's no questions, it gets
Done. Right.
approved. And if there's any questions, then we just itemize them the way that they've always been. And that's pretty common.
It is. But in the description, it says will be placed on the regular agenda for discussion. So that to me sounds like it's added in new business.
Broken out just right in that. It does not mean put under new business to ask about a check number. It would be, instead of putting these out, I do have a question on the bills.
Gotcha.
So we would do the consent on everything except for the bills. The bills, we talk about the bills, you would have the opportunity to ask about check 1427.
Gotcha.
It's really just intended to save time, but not to not have your questions answered.
I'd like to make the motion that we move forward and approve of rules of procedures.
All right, we have a motion on the floor by Bartholomew. Do we have support?
Or Edwards?
Oznansky, discussion.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Bartholomew. We have support by Edwards to do it as presented. Posanski, you have some other discussion?
I did. I was wondering, Zach, this would be the time if you wanted to change that public forum. This would be the time that we would talk about adjusting the agenda.
Thank you. I was just looking for my information to go over that. I appreciate that, Megan.
And so actually, Zach, that's on page 5. If you have that report.
I don't have it.
It only has, after special presentations, it lists number 6 as public comment. It doesn't say agenda items only. It just says public comment. So that's before new business and before unfinished business. I believe that's what you were requesting earlier.
So number 6, you're saying says public comments.
Correct. Yes,
So the public forum is completely wiped out then.
correct. But we moved it up on the agenda instead of last.
So there's no interaction with the public at all, period.
Well, there's every interaction with the public, anybody who wishes to address this board. Sure.
Right.
Certainly.
They can address them, but with the comments, the way it currently is right now, they can express themselves, but there is no response to whatever they say. Correct?
Zach, we're not required to give an answer. It is the opportunity for the public to come forward and ask any question or offer any comment that they wanted within the restricted time frame of 3 minutes or 5 minutes. I'm sorry, I don't have that number right in front of me, but it's 3 to 5 minutes. Certainly, I don't think anybody's unwilling to give any answers if you have an answer.
Right.
But there are some times that
correct.
you don't have an answer handy, and so you'll just note their question and comments and their contact information so that we can get back to them, when we have the actual correct information to share.
I think the interaction with the public and the board is so important, especially in a village, because we're not a city, we are a village of Romeo. And in the past, I understand this is your administration, this is now. But in the past, people came forward to express themselves, and they were able to be handled at the village clerk's office or by the president or by the board. This is completely taken out. With the public forum agenda items only, sometimes people have concerns that may come up at that point during the week, but if it's not on the agenda, then it won't get discussed. And with the public comments at the end of this meeting thing, just like last meeting, they all hung up by the time we even got to that point.
Right. So now in the proposed conduct of meetings, it's before all of that, Zach.
I understand. Number 6.
I still believe that this is addressing your concern.
But are we going to be able to interact with the public, period?
Again, Zach, I say that this is a business meeting for us to discuss the items that are here. We are welcoming all of the public to come and give us their feedback at any time. I have said, I have regular business hours. I have an email. I have a phone. You can call me. I think each one of you have contact information that's out there. We all welcome interaction with our residents. And we all are able to feedback that if somebody can't attend the meeting, you can offer their feedback or ask their questions if it's not getting answered or something that we need to look at. So we're all, I think, interacting on a daily basis with our residents, but certainly allowing them a time to come and offer any comment or concern, whether it's on the agenda or not, is allowed under this conduct of meetings. Number 6 is where we're going to put that on the agenda. They also have the opportunity to stand up under public comment and ask that their time be reserved for a specific agenda item, if you read through that. And certainly we can note that, and then they will be allowed to speak during specific agenda items if it meets the criteria. Does that answer your question?
Well, I understand what you're saying as far as what you want pushed forward, and the part about if it meets the criteria. So it's not really open.
It's
they can't
open.
come up and just
It's
just
open.
said, if it meets the criteria, then if it doesn't meet the criteria, then we're not going to discuss whatever's ailing the resident.
What I'm suggesting, Zach, is if we're talking about the park, right? And somebody wants to stand up and offer a comment about the park or ask to talk about the park when that's on our agenda, we're going to give them an opportunity to speak about the park. But when we're talking about the park, they're not going to come and talk about trash. That's what I meant when I said if it meets the criteria, right? So we're going to narrow our focus down. We're going to have the agenda items so that we can talk about the business at hand and still allow for feedback from our residents. Did that clarify that for you?
You got it your way. That's fine.
All right.
One question. I had made that one comment. Is that something that was included, or was it as it was written last month? I just think that after any clarification is helpful.
Trustee Bartholomew, are you going to allow Bob Hart's clarification in your motion?
Yes.
And Edwards, do you still support that?
Yes.
Okay. Megan, did you have any further discussion?
Not really discussion, I guess, just a comment that I would be okay with keeping our current agenda or our current way of order with just adding online things. I think we've been doing very good. It's been, I was just thinking to myself, it's been about a year next month that we started, just about somewhere in there that we started all this. And I think we've all adapted very well, and you've been hosting the meetings very professionally. So I think with keeping with the old and just adding in the online stuff would be good. And that's it.
Okay. Just a quick note, the other items for the public comment that I did the research and add in here was at your original request when there was some correspondence. You had asked for some clarification to be made for how we were going to handle correspondence. And so that was why that section was added. And I hope that meets your needs as well as, the clarification for the residents. So, and obviously the online meetings, not something that any of us are dealing with, right? So we have to put in there the rules, however the state is going to allow. And hopefully after March 31st, we can't meet on Zoom anymore, and we can all meet in person, and we can just, just allow that whole section. But as long as the governors and this COVID is going on, I guess we have to have some sort of rule. So that's why that was created and reviewed by legal as well.
Yes, understandable.
Christine Parker, some more input if possible. Under the under B, conduct of the meetings, number 4, where it talks about the council member reports. Why would a council member be limited in the council meeting to a report time? It
Well,
feels
again,
like it's our meeting, right? It's council meeting, trustee meeting. I don't think there should be a limit on a council report. And then
there would only be a limit, Justin, if there was some grandstanding. The object here is really to sort of streamline the meetings. We have a lot of business that we have to attend to.
I can respect that.
We have 6 or 7 people are like Zach said, people are losing interest and they just log off the meetings because we're rambling on about things. So really, we're trying to streamline the meeting process, still give everybody ample opportunity to speak. I don't think 3 minutes is unreasonable to give a report. I don't think any of us have really exceeded 3 minutes. So I think anything that you need to say can be said within 3 minutes. And if there is a reason for it
does that time limit?
Excuse me, if there's a reason for it to be extended, we certainly have the latitude to do that. Again, if you're giving a special presentation or a report that requires more time, we can certainly make that accommodation. This is just a policy that we're adhering to. Again, it's not the law. And so that's why we put a time limit on there.
Yeah, I mean, I can respect that. Like you keep saying, it's not the law, and we can change it and work with it throughout the whole thing. I then question why we're adding and changing so much on this one to start with. And then under council member reports, would you then fall under the council, that time limit? And then who would give you approval to go over? Do you give yourself approval? I just for clarification.
I'm pretty sure that none of mine really exceed 3 minutes. So I'm pretty comfortable.
I'm not saying they have, just looking
right.
for clarification.
Yeah.
Okay, and then continue down to discussion and voting. I have an issue with the letter A, and not that I want to be on my phone or texting or, TikToking with people, but half of our board packet is sent electronically. So if I've got to reference something that was sent electronically on my phone or tablet, I think that needs to be clarified in that section, because if distraction from mobile devices during a meeting, that could be taken the wrong way if someone's sitting there referencing something that was emailed to them instead of printed and mailed.
Mhm. Again, I think if we all had tablets, where instead of printed reports, it would all be handy. But we don't have the funding to do that right now, and so we do have this mix. I would like all of our entire board packets emailed instead of printed and delivered. One, I think it's a waste of our resources. I, for one, have boxes and boxes of 8 years of board packets that I can't catalog because they're not electronic. And I think if we had moved into the electronic age, all of these PDFs could be made searchable. It'd be much easier for us to maintain our own personal records. But again, we don't have that as an option right now to go to electronic, like tablets or iPads. I think Washington Township does that.
Respecting what you're saying.
It's really designed so that, there isn't texting going back and forth in a meeting. And certainly, at a Zoom meeting, it's easy enough to switch off your video feed and go about your business and do whatever you need to do while you're not on camera and still be in attendance of the meeting. But when we're meeting in the meeting room, hopefully soon back in person, there shouldn't be a need really to reference a cell phone to get a text message. Unless it's an emergency, in which case you would, pick up your phone and excuse yourself from the meeting and attend to that business outside.
Again, not referring to texting or calling or anything like that, but I think this just needs to be removed, because agreeing with what you just said, part of our stuff is electronically sent. So we do have to reference some of this when we're bringing up things to look at and vote on.
The only thing that's sent electronically are the reports, which is the fire run report. Most everything else that we're addressing on the business, new business, old business, is printed in your packet.
I believe the budget amendment tonight was emailed.
The budget.
Or
Some of it, but the amended portion, Tim is on the phone or on the meeting, and he'll be addressing those specific numbers.
No, I mean that's my issue with that. Is that we do get stuff emailed, we do have stuff that we need to reference. So I mean, like you said, getting up with the times. If we're gonna switch over to 100% electronic, anyways, as your wish, then we're gonna have to be on tablets. We're gonna have to have something electronic mobile device in front of us at a meeting. So if that's the way that you want to see it in the future, I don't understand why that's even on there.
Well, again, I believe that there's been several instances of texting and some distractions. I just find that there's distractions in the meeting. And so let's just suggest that we all put those aside and just focus on the business that we're dealing with.
Can we add to that line then, saying that free from distraction, but allowed for referencing?
Again, Justin, this is just this is a policy. Why do we need to try and
then why do we need to add any of it, Christine?
Right, I understand that. So is there any other items that you have a concern about? Because I have a motion on the floor, support by Edwards, as presented with the inclusion of Hart's suggestion.
Like I said, I would like A removed if they would be willing to amend that.
I'm presenting my motion as is.
I expected.
All right. Let's call the roll on that then. If you need me to clarify that motion, the one motion was to adopt the rules of procedure as amended for February 16th, 2021, with the inclusion of clarification under the discussion and voting. That motion was by Bartholomew with support by Edwards.
Okay. Bartholomew,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Fowler,
No.
Poznanski,
Poznanski, no.
Parker,
Parker, no.
President Malzahn,
Yes.
and Hart.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-3.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to our new business. We have our CDBG fund allocations. We received a total amount of, whoops, I'm sorry, I slid past that slide here. Okay, the Village of Romeo was granted $2,500 in available funding. Is mandated for the CHORE program that we allocate $300 of that to them, and the rest of it is for our discretion or our discussion. Catherine and I took a look at this. Catherine is the CDBG grant coordinator. So if you do have specific questions about that program, I suggest that you reach out to her. But if you see the screen that I'm sharing right now, Care House requested $1,800. Interfaith Volunteer Caregivers requested $148. McCrest requested $3,780. Samaritan House $1,000. Turning Point $1,000. We have $2,500 minus the $300 to spend, so we have $2,200. So we just basically took an even percentage of what they were requesting to what our allocations were, and that's how we came up with the proposed amounts that you see in front of us. So Care House, we're proposing gets $513.75. Interfaith Volunteers proposed $50. McCrest proposed $1,008.75. Samaritan House, $313.75. And Turning Point, $313.75. Do you have any questions regarding that?
Yes, I have one regarding interfaith volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
They do a lot more in-home repairs, the little stuff. So the $50, any way we can get that up to $100 at least?
Well, again, we just took an allocation of, I believe it's close to 34% when we did the math. Everybody got 34% of what they requested. So that was our suggestion, just to make it fair and even.
Yeah, their request amount is so low.
Right.
Anything to get close to what they're doing, and they're actually doing good service in people's homes. And I guess if you look at the structure of block grant dollars, they're mostly brick and mortar dollars, and they're actually doing those causes there.
Well, again, it's not just brick and mortar dollars, Zach. That's what the CHORE program funds, those $300. The rest of it is community block grant funds. So certainly, we all know and love our local Samaritan House. We know that food is probably more important at this time for people who have insufficient funds. And then, McCrest, certainly sheltering, our homeless in the area. Turning Point, taking care of, women and children in need of care and some intercession. So, it's unfortunate that we have such a need with so little funding really to offer. But this is Catherine and I's proposal. If somebody wants to make a motion for something different, the motion, is on the floor. It's open.
I would like to say, Zach, I couldn't agree with you more. It's a shame, but I understand how they've broken it down to keep it fair for each group. And, but yeah, every year this is kind of a little bit of a discouragement at times. But with that, I would like to make the motion that we move forward rather with these allocations as presented here tonight.
I'll second that.
Okay, so that was a motion by Bartholomew. That was support by Parker. Was that you, Justin?
That was.
Okay. Was there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Bartholomew,
Yes.
Parker,
I did have one question regarding this, just because, once again, new to this. So is this taxpayer dollars, funds that we're allocating to charity organizations? Is that correct?
no, this is grant money that was given to each municipality from, I have the paperwork I can show you, but it is grant money given to us by the
I'll
state.
take your word for it. Maybe we can follow up on that tomorrow.
Yes.
Justin,
no,
what they do
grant money.
is they give the communities and some say in how they want it to be allocated.
Mhm.
But it's for this purpose, and this is what we can use it for. So they're just giving us the opportunity to, put our blessing on what we're allocating.
It's the county providing the funding, correct?
That is correct.
And is this typically in other municipalities? Not that I'm downplaying any of them on this list, but is this typically where they go to charities? This funding?
Yes, they typically go to their local charities within their municipality and other housing projects. In more government housing, more detailed items in the bigger communities. Yes.
And as long as I can remember, this is the process that we've used. We've given them a percentage of what they requested. I think we've always done that.
We used to get $10,000. Now we're down to 2,500. That's how dwindling, the funds are. But yes, it's been the same process.
And the allocation for the $10,000 was basically, like I indicated earlier, the actual going into the houses and doing repairs or helping those people do those repairs. So each time we don't use those funds, our funds get reduced. And that's why I say these people like Interfaith, they actually go in there and, like you said, repair light switches, handrails, that kind of stuff there. So
no, unfortunately,
Please.
Zach, you're incorrect in that. And I can get you some more information on community block grant funds. And next
yes,
time,
please do, because I don't think I'm incorrect.
well, next time they have a workshop, hopefully you can attend with us, because Catherine and I have attended several of these to understand exactly what areas of the village qualify for this and how we can spend these funds. So I know for certain that, yeah.
Could you also include me on that? I'd like to join too.
I will pass that along. I believe it's in November. I'll get you the information. It could be October, so it's only once a year, but I'll let you know when that is available.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, so we had a motion on the floor by Bartholomew. We had support by Parker. Can you call the roll, please?
Bartholomew,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Hart,
Art, yes.
Poznansky,
Poznansky, yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
President Malzahn.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Great. Let's move on to Younger's special event permit. You have in your packet a permit that Glenn submitted for approval for March 17th, 2021, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. for St. Patrick's Day. I believe that Glenn is on the meeting call. Let me get back to your slide here. Did you have anything that you wanted to add, Mr. Willem? You are muted. All right, well, hearing none from him, you have the permit in your packet and you see the drawing of his parcel with the red outline of where the tent will be constructed just for the day's activities.
Christine, this is Parker, I had a couple questions. I don't know if you or if he is on that can answer. What this tent will be set up at around the 10 o'clock hour and then taken it down at 10 p.m. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
that's what it says, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m.
What is the tent being used for?
I believe he's using for his outdoor seating and probably food or beverage service.
Okay, and I guess it would be a question for him, but if there's going to be alcohol beverages served outside, what type of safety precautions is he putting in place for that?
It's all done through the state liquor control. He would have had to apply for a special event permit through them. I'm sure that they, just like St. Baldrick's, would require security, a secured perimeter that would have, just designated entrance points so that there's not open intoxicants being carried out into the other municipal parking lot areas.
Gotcha.
I'd like to
make a motion to approve the special event with the understanding that he has obtained the proper state permits and is going to follow all the current restrictions and guidelines that are in place on that date.
Art support.
He will, Justin, just so that you know, he'll need to get me a copy of that as well as a copy of his insurance for that special event coverage. So I'll make sure I have both of those on file.
Thank you.
Okay.
There was one other thing. If it's going to be at night, he says he's going to have no electrical out there. Is he going to have no additional lighting or anything ran out there?
He did not request it, so I'm assuming, I don't know.
Okay. I'll stick with my motion.
If there is, there has to be a permit.
Yeah, an electrical
Right,
inspection.
you would have to get an electrical, permit if you're going to put a generator or something out there. But the municipal lot itself is pretty well lit. So
That's true.
Okay, so we had a motion by Parker. We had support by Hart to approve the special event permit. Roll call, please.
Getting a lot of feedback there at the office, Christine.
Okay, Parker,
Yes.
Hart,
Art, yes.
Poznanski,
Poznanski, yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Bartholomew,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
President Malzahn.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, let's move on to the Muni Code ordinance books. Justin, you had received a copy of the ordinance book and were questioning on the why it was outdated, as well as our Muni Code online. And I believe you've got an update in the email for the online portion and where that work stands. Clerk Trapp can also clarify if any questions on that. But we did request a quote for the Muni Code ordinance books, which you see on this slide here. It's quite expensive. I am getting feedback. You have that.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll clarify that sound. So to get one copy, just the insert for all the Muni Code that we have on the books right now. And I think that does not include 17, 18, and 19. I'm sorry, Catherine, can you tell me what year we cut off?
Right, the last supplement left off. So we are missing 17, 18, 19, and 20, which entails 9 ordinances.
Okay, so those are in the process of being codified and then reviewed and then put up online. So this one copy without the cover, as you can see, is $287.50 plus shipping. If you want to get 5 copies of those inserts, you can see the pricing that you have in front of you, or 10 sets, including all the pages, the tabs, and the binders. I believe each one of the trustees have a leather covered binder. I know I received mine, it was a hand-me-down from Margaret Feldhaus when I took office. And in front of that, when I received it, were the inserts that had been updated prior. They weren't necessarily in the tabbed order within the book. I went and myself and did that work. So we do have some shrink wrapped insert sections from the ones that have been completed. Because again, none of the ordinances were approved from 2014 had been codified and put online. So that's how far back we had to go. So your book that you received, Justin, was only current up to 2014. So we now have the tabbed sections that we can give to you to insert into your binder for up to 2017. we're going to put online 17, 18, 19, and 20, 9 ordinances that we've approved, and those should be up online shortly. If you want to get and approve an expenditure to get 10 complete new ones so that everybody gets a new set, this is the funding that you're looking at, $2,110.
I don't think there's any reason to purchase complete sets. I mean, we've all got, like you stated, everything up to 14. So as long as we've got tabs or inserts, and page breaks where to insert here, insert there, I don't think there's any need to go all out, but I think it is justifiable for the board to have an updated book of ordinances. We can work with what we have.
Can I just make a comment of a thought? In the 10 years that I've been on the board, I've looked at the codes a number of times, but it's much easier online. And that's where I even found that there were some ordinances that I know that we had passed and they hadn't been updated. So I think that might have even alerted part of our situation. But the book, the binder, I have never used. I have it, and when we've gotten updates, I put that with it, but I've never used the book. It's so much easier to search and read and work without it. So personally, I don't need one, but
I can respect that personally. I'm the total opposite, Bob. I would prefer to have that written copy in front of me, especially for something like that I'm going to reference often, maybe in preparation for meetings. So just difference of opinion there.
Mm-hmm. So I just need some direction on how you want us to get you the information. If you want us just to focus right now on getting everything upline, and I believe that the years that still have to be codified have been submitted to MuniCode, and they are in the process of completing that work. I think.
Did you have a date on that, Christine?
I believe she said 6 to 8 weeks.
And that's from today or from whenever this email was sent, January 27th?
Yes, because when we had a conference call with her, Catherine had already submitted that, and she said that it was being looked into. I don't know what the date actually was when it was, received or noted, or when, it was allocated to somebody to actually begin the work within their company. But she told us about 6 to 8 weeks to finish the other 9 ordinances. So hopefully by the end of springtime, you should be up to date. Of course, anything new that we, approve or amend or update needs to have this process, put in place.
And then it would just be a single print, sent out, update a book. So the top section.
It wouldn't be a single print. It would probably be a minimum of, there are 7 trustees.
Books, yeah.
I don't know if I'm assuming we get one for legal counsel. We have one that we keep, at the front counter for people who come in, residents who come in, and we need a quick reference. So I would think it'd probably be a minimum of 10 or 12, not
That's
just
not
one.
a single ordinance. As we add or adopt different ordinances, it'd just be one ordinance or possibly 2 at a time. It's not like we're reprinting the whole book. So
right. To me, I would think that we would do it on an annual basis, try and keep track of what do we do with, we did the year in review, then we would submit those and have it done. I don't know if it's a cost savings to do it, as we do it approved and we publicize it, and then it's on the books to do it right then and there, or if we wait and we do it all in one bulk for whatever we did for a calendar year is probably the way that I would think it'd be more easily handled, but.
Gotcha. So for clarification, this first section on the email with the cost, that's still not everything up to date. Is that what you said? It's only up to like 17?
Correct. Because we don't know how many pages the rest of it's going to be.
So I guess before we make any decision, let's see what it's going to be to get everything up to date in the 6 to 8 weeks. We can look at this again in a month or two. And as long as everything's getting updated online as soon as possible, at least we have that reference, and then we can look at printing a whole book or individual tabs as needed.
What I'd like to do, I'd like to make a motion that we would leave it up to the trustees. If they want to have a complete book, I don't think that should be something that should be withheld from them. I would like to give my book as it is back to the office and let the office, if council needs one, we need one in the office. We need that. who needs a book that's part of our council or, should have one if they want it. And just, we would provide it if it is so requested. And if it's not requested, then, they don't have to have it, because I really don't need it and really don't want it. It's been sitting in a drawer for years.
Nancy comment?
Could you hang on 1 second? Because we have a motion by Hart. Does his motion have support? His motion, just to clarify, his motion was for the books to be requested to be printed.
And updated, like we take our books, the office will take all the books that they have. If people have it, whatever people have, we would pay the cost to give them an updated book if they need it. But I don't think we should buy 10 or 5. There are 10 requests for those, and not be required that a trustee or anybody has a physical book. But if they want one, they certainly should be able to be provided with one. So we would pick up the cost.
Is that limited to trustees, Bob, or?
The village council should have one. The office should have one physically sitting there. If the president wanted a book, I think, that would probably be the extent. I don't know if the clerk certainly, and a treasurer. Beyond that, I don't know.
Maybe legal counsel, right?
Legal, I did mention legal for sure.
Yes.
And Mark should have a book. He has one, I think, in his briefcase.
But the residents would get theirs online. Is what is.
Well, yeah, we'd never provide that. Or they can walk into the office during office hours and be able to have access to it.
Yes, we have.
So
we had a motion by Hart.
I would like to support that.
Okay, we had support by Bartholomew. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Megan, your discussion now?
I do enjoy using my book. I am a paper person, and I would actually be okay if I just had a final finished copy, even just from the village office, printed off. Not that it needs to go out for print. So that's just an idea. Print off at the office what we need and put it in the book.
Simple 3-ring binder, nothing leather.
Well, yes, it's quite complex with all the different tabs and the different sections, as you note. And so we don't have the capabilities here in the office to do any of that work. Our equipment is just not that sophisticated. Certainly we could, do the same thing that you could do at home and go online and print those pages. But to take our book apart with all the tabs to make a copy would be quite burdensome for the staff.
No, I'm not suggesting that.
Yes. So is there any other discussion? Otherwise, I'm going to take the roll call for the motion on the floor, and then suggest that each one of the trustees, I guess at the first meeting when we can meet in person, if you want to give me your book back, or you want to drop it off to the village offices or somehow get it to me, if you no longer want it, certainly give me that, or give me an email, give Catherine an email. And then those that are keeping it, just let us know you're keeping it, and we'll make sure that we order the proper amount of codified inserts to give you when we receive those. Does that sound fair? Okay, call the roll then.
Hart,
Yes.
Bartholomew,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Poznanski,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Parker,
Parker, yes.
President Malzahn.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you for getting this information out. I appreciate it.
Can I just add to that? Yeah, Justin, if you have any I've gotten some emails recently with more information. If you have any questions, please just forward me an email.
Okay, next up on our agenda, we have the goals and objectives and budget workshop meeting dates. The slide that I'm showing right now are some suggested dates, goals and objectives for Wednesday, March 3rd or Monday, March 8th. The budget workshops, Wednesday, April 7th or Monday, April 12th. Also budget workshops, Wednesday, May 5th or Monday, May 10th. The idea here is that we would like to meet as early in March as possible to talk about our goals and objectives, the stance, the financial status of the village, and how we want to move projects forward for the next 1 to 5 years. And that will give us time internally then to draft some budgets that we can then begin working on our budget workshops in April, and hopefully get it completed in April. But if we need to use the month of May, so that we can take it to our May council for an actual final vote. So I'd like to get a consensus because these are going to be public meetings, and I wanted to get the information, especially for the goals and objectives, up and available, because I'm hoping to get, community input and as many residents to attend the goals and objectives as possible. So
how about keeping our meeting date to Monday? Does that work for everybody?
Give me a sec, Bob, to skim through.
Mondays are best for me.
The best for me as well.
It'd be the 8th, the 12th, and the 10th, then, right?
Yes,
Okay.
those would be the 3 Mondays.
Sounds good,
Mondays
Bob.
work for me too.
Okay. So I don't think we need to have a motion on the floor for these dates. Catherine and I will just draft the agenda and the meeting notices, but if you could please just mark your calendars for those 3 dates: Monday, March 8th for goals and objectives, Monday, April 12th for the first budget workshop, and Monday, May 10th for the second budget workshop if needed. Okay, let's move on then to the rental inspection ordinance. We saw this rental inspection ordinance probably about a year ago. I think we started talking about this ordinance, and I asked our village planner, Steve Casson, to help me draft this. It's been to the Planning Commission. I've asked them to review it. They've had a, excuse me, for several months, and at their meeting this past month, they decided to send it up to us for approval. This is not a zoning ordinance. This is a code of ordinance, so that I still wanted to send it to Planning Commission just for their input, because again, the more eyes that we have on it, the more ideas, and the more people who can put some thought process into how this process would work, we're all better served by it. But the intent of it is so that if this is a non-homeowner occupied property, we would have a rental inspection process, whether we establish it annually, every 2 years. There would be a fee that would be paid by the property owner, and it would be a requirement so that our building inspector would go in and visually make sure that the premise was being, cared for. It was in safe living conditions for the tenants, and it would help us to have situations like we have up on Chandler Street happening. So I want you to review this. We do not have to adopt this tonight because there's still some process work that needs to happen. I need to meet with our building inspector, Mike Bomarito, to find out, how does this work? I need to speak with Wilson. How do we coordinate and send out those letters? What's the fee structure going to be? None of that work has sort of been done, but I wanted the trustees to have it, to start thinking about it, and to offer some feedback on if they think this is a good idea or not a good idea. And with that, I'll open it up to Zach, because I know that Zach had some concerns at the Planning Commission.
Thank you,
and
Chris.
he's probably going to want to share those with us right now. So
Well,
Zach,
yeah,
I'll give you the floor.
I mean, as far as the overall structure of it, we liked it. At least I liked it, and so did the Planning Commission. I only had a problem with E and F on the draft, and this entire piece refers to rental property tenants. But if in Romeo, I know of over 20 houses right now in the village of Romeo on both sides of Van Dyke, to where mortgages are involved with families, to where a mother or father's in the house and the kids actually take over the mortgage, but they don't live in the village. So there's a situation there where it's occupied by the family, but the note doesn't go to that address, that house, it goes to the kids. Or another situation is like an estate property, where the property's in an estate held, and there's not a direct person that lives in the house at that time, but the house is still occupied by family. Or the property is purchased as an asset years ago within the village of Romeo, and the family probably moved to Florida or something like that, but their kids are in the house. And like I indicated on E and F, these two here, everything on this document refers to as a rental property where you're collecting money. And in these situations I just give you, there is no rental situation. So that was my only objection. I mean, we went round and round at the planning commission about it, but they wanted to send it to the council, which is fine too. So I was the only no vote, and this was my big objection against this document was just, like I said, E and F.
Zach, can I ask you a question in regards to that?
Shoot.
So E and F, so if it's a family owner occupied, if there's technically no rental agreement between mother and son, or, you know, whatever that relationship may be, there's not a rental or lease agreement, then does that property fall under this rental property ordinance?
Well, according to the way that is Mr. Clark online at all? Oh, okay.
Yes, he is, Zach. Mm-hmm.
Hey, Mark, can I ask a question, please? Mark, the way that you have number F written up, any individual, firm, partnership, association, joint stock company, joint venture, public or private corporation. I mean, this actually lists the three examples that I gave. Is that a true assumption of what this reads?
Well, first of all, I didn't prepare this. I have reviewed it in preparation for the meeting, and you can, if you choose, as a body, the village council you could make an exception for family-owned properties. One of the things to consider if you're going to do that, how far out do you extend the family? Is it going to be father, mother, child? Is it going to be aunts, uncles, grandfather? Is it going to go down to cousins? And so you can make whatever exception that you feel is appropriate. You just have to, with the exception, treat everybody equally. So you can't say it's okay for one family member in this family, but not another family member. So whatever exception you make, you can do that. But if you're going to accept grandparents, parents, children, you have to consider how far out are you going to extend the exception. And I think one of the reasons why in F, where the definition of person is so broadly based, is you can go back 40 or 50 years and people owned rental units in their own name and they rented them out. Liability issues arose, tax or financial considerations arose. And so now a lot of times rental units, income producing properties, are owned by a limited liability company. There's a reason for that. And so I think the definition is cast quite broad to allow for just about anybody to be a landlord or a tenant. But again, you can carve out exceptions. You just have to be fair and reasonable about those exceptions.
Yeah, as you were just giving your explanation, you did indicate, you said rental properties again. So that's where I have the problem with the way I described my three examples and the way that this portion reads. I think the draft's good. I like the exception, make exceptions for those that have legacy properties here in the village of Romeo and occupied by family members. I think you're correct. Let's not go down to 5th, 6th, 8th cousin or something like that.
And let me just approach it from a slightly different direction, just to give it a little bit of context. And that is this. In Michigan, the purpose of the ordinance is to provide for safe housing in the community, that ordinances are followed, electrical codes are followed, plumbing codes are followed. The purpose is to provide safe housing in the community. These originated years ago primarily in college towns because you would have absentee landlords renting to college students, and the landlord, I went to Michigan State, so the landlord might live in Grand Rapids, but the housing is located in East Lansing, where you didn't have a present landlord, and it caused problems. So these types of ordinances, not entirely, but the point of origin is usually in a college town. One of the things to remember, that the idea is for safe housing. In Michigan, there's no such thing, with one or two very limited and narrow exceptions. There's no such thing as self-help repossession. Somebody doesn't pay the rent, whether it's a family member or a stranger, somebody doesn't pay the rent, they don't maintain the premises. You can't just go in, knock on the door and say you're out of here, and walk in and put their furniture out on the curb. You have to follow a process. And so I would just, the reason I mention that is to not get way into the weeds, but is that you have a situation where there can be a rental arrangement and no written lease. Very common. People have 30-day, month-to-month tenancies. They have nothing in writing. And from the landlord's point of view, if you have one or two houses, you don't want a written lease because you don't want to argue over the terms of the lease with your tenant. You want to be able to go to court and put them out, give the tenant 30 days notice, and have a judge order that they be put out. If you own an apartment building and you're getting financing, you go to the bank. Banks really like leases because they want to see a stream of income. And so, again, I mentioned that you can have a rental arrangement without a written lease. You can have the requirement of a tenant to pay rent and the landlord to provide the housing without having a written lease, and it can be between strangers, it can be between family members. So when you're looking at an ordinance like this, I just recommend that you consider not every rental arrangement is in writing. To Zach's point, if you want to carve out family exceptions, my recommendation is to identify that and specify it. Is it going to be parents, grandparents, children, nieces, nephews, cousins? How far out are you going to go? But however far out you're going to go, you want to identify it, because once you start to try to enforce the ordinance, you don't want to get into an argument with somebody. And so you don't want to just say family members will be accepted, because I can say with some assurance that suddenly all your tenants are going to be family members. And so I just recommend you give some thought to that.
All right, that makes sense.
We also don't want to make this so cumbersome and burdensome that it can't be, it can't be facilitated, right? We have to have a process in place that makes it easy, for a notification in a registry system with a single fee annually, and the work is done. We're not looking at this as a money making, or a tax. This is just a fee that's going to cover the cost of Bomarito's time and Cindy's time to probably mail out the letters and set up the dates.
But in some of these situations, there is no rental agreement. There is no fee being paid. And I agree with you, Mark, as far as the exceptions of identifying how far down the chain you go with these.
I think the starting point that you're at is it's a non-owner occupied dwelling. So that's the key. The rental, whether they're charging, you really can't get it. The owner doesn't live there. So
but see, there's a loophole, Bob, already. All one person just has to do is put the address whether they live in Florida, you can still collect mail there and it can be mailed to them.
But not if that's not their PRE. If they don't have a PRE filed for it, it's not their main residence.
Right.
So that's easily looked at.
Sure.
And we don't have to reinvent the wheel. In Hazel Park, I have some rentals. Warren, this is.
But see, you have rentals.
But it's a good thing.
I'm not talking about the rentals. I understand that.
I'm
just talking about people that actually have their real family in these homes within the village of Romeo. That's all I'm talking about.
So what I'm saying,
there is no income producer. They're just making the payments, or the parents live there, and the kids are paying it, and they live in Florida. So that's all I'm just looking at there.
Yeah, let's add that.
I'm
in.
not disagreeing with this piece of
If I can
paper
just
here.
clarify the point I was making, legally, it's a non-owner occupied dwelling. So that's where you have to start on a legal basis. Now, I would agree, grandparents and children, we can make some kind of an exception for that. Other than that, all we're really doing is, and it's a 3 years, I think is pretty generous. The way it was going, we have to do it every 2 years in the other ones. And it's a pain, but it's a good thing. I mean, you make sure that smoke detectors are in the place. You make thing, you know.
I'm not in disagreement with this. I agree with you.
It's really not that bad that if it's it's not a lot and not stopping people from allowing them to live there. So
if that's the point, if I could just clarify, Zach, you would like it to be like Bob has suggested, immediate children or grandparents, right? So if I ask Mark to review and help me craft a paragraph that would have those exceptions, you would find it more palatable.
Yes.
Okay, so that's fair. Any other feedback from any of the other trustees?
Parker,
Yes.
yeah, under the section 3, where it talks about item number 2, inspection shall be completed to the satisfactory of the village. I think we need to clearly define what we're going to go into these buildings and homes and be inspecting. If it's just up to someone's discrepancy to walk in and like, oh, I know this guy, I'm going to let this slide. You know what I mean? I wouldn't expect our guy to do that, but I think it needs to be clearly defined what is being inspected at the.
Mark, I don't mean to put you on the spot because I don't have a copy in front of me, but doesn't it reference the Michigan Building Code?
Well, that's another issue then, because we've got buildings here that are extremely old, and to bring some of them up to current standards, and then that standard may change every 2 to 3 years based on building code changing. That's asking, I think, quite a bit of some of the property owners in the village.
The draft of the ordinance under section 3 that to which Justin is making reference, it's entitled requirements, and then it's very precise that you can't lease, rent, or occupy. So as the owner, you can't lease it out, and as the tenant, you can't lease it or occupy it unless these requirements are met. And the inspection says an inspection shall have been completed to the satisfaction of the village. I think to make these ordinances most effective, there are two primary things that in their implementation. One is notice, to give people, let people know, put it on your website, new resident packets that you do have a housing ordinance, you do have a rental unit ordinance. Compliance really starts with notice, people realizing what's going to be required of them. And then the other is, as part of the knowing what's required, what does the ordinance specify? And there, if you're going to say current electrical code, current building code, current plumbing code, whatever it is you want when the inspector goes in to verify, I think you should put it in the ordinance so that people know. And again, you will in that process in deciding whether to pass this, and if so, in what form, to have the particulars in there. Because if you try to enforce something and it's challenged because it's too vague, well, I didn't know I had to do that. Where is it in the ordinance? Or I didn't understand that. It's nowhere stated in the ordinance. That becomes problematic when you're seeking enforcement, and it's hard on the inspectors as well. If the inspectors don't know exactly for what they're supposed to be looking, it just really can become problematic.
Yeah, I would agree. I think we need to clarify exactly what's being inspected, because to bring these buildings in town up to quote unquote current code that changes, that there's probably not a building in the village in the downtown area that's going to follow that. And not that they can't, but that's quite a bit.
I think what we all want is safety, And
Safety, and I agree. So I think
That stuff-
clarifying what we're going to look for is huge because
right,
you know
the height of
there's
a
there's a
rail.
lot of electrical codes. I know, being an electrician, that have changed from 3 years ago to 10 years ago to 50 years ago when some of these buildings and apartments and stuff were built, and that's kind of a lot. You know, multifamily residents, you know, the apartments, bringing those up to a current electrical code could cost thousands per unit.
Right.
Right,
I
so
don't
let
think
me let
that's what
me
we're
do
looking
this.
for.
Let me meet with Mr. Bomarito. I think he's due back from his holidays shortly. So I'll get with him and see if we can't clarify, to Justin's point, what specific items or scope of work that he would be looking at. Also, I want to clarify what the fee would be that he would charge to the village so that we would know what to cost to associate with this ordinance. And then I'll also meet with Mark, or maybe Mark and me and Mike Bomarito will all meet together in one room so that we can knock this out and just clarify the family paragraph. And then we'll bring this back to you, to council for board action at a later date. Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
That's fine, but a lot of these things, like Bob was going to mention, like handrails and things like that, a lot of the old heights were very, very short. Well, those things get grandfathered in. And I don't know if we need to reflect that in this or what, how that's handled. And like electrical issues, well, a lot of those old things get grandfathered in. I mean, are we going to reflect that in this?
Mm-hmm.
It's a good,
Okay.
Yeah, I like that.
Posnanski question. If we could, in the meantime, clarify, how would this all initially go into effect? Would we, all of a sudden, we pass this and then the owners of the rentals have to do this immediately? Or are we going to give them a year, give them a heads up and say, in a year, we'll be sending you this and requiring these inspections? How would we go about that?
Yeah, that's part of that process that I talked about that we have to establish, right? Of how are we going to serve, I'll have to get with the assessors and with the treasurer so that we see how can we best identify who doesn't have a PRE right now. How many properties are we even talking about? I don't know if it's 5 or if it's 500. If it's on the higher end, then certainly we need to take a look at how are we going to accommodate implementing this. So yeah. I'll work on clarifying that as well.
For my clarification, this does include, I'm understanding, the industrial area and any rental within the village, correct?
I believe it's just residential.
Okay, because I thought I saw something in there that said commercial or industrial property in section 2, I believe. H talks about rental unit, and this, on the next H, go to the next page, commercial industrial property, including structures which are leased or rented, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
We'll take a look at that as well.
Okay. And the only other last thing is under section 10, kind of talks, I guess, similar to section 3, where it talks about the requirements. And then in section 10 under B, it says a certificate of compliance shall be issued, blah, blah, blah. Satisfactory completed of the following, but nowhere in that section does it say anything about a completion of an inspection. We reference needing the inspection in the requirements on 3, but then under the certificate of compliance, don't we have to then list? You have to have that completed to get your certificate?
I would think that would be part of the checklist, because that's what originally Mr. Bomarito talked to me about, some of the ones that he does facilitate, he has to go back 4, 5, 6 times to get those items checked off. So it's just like a standard, compliance checklist like we do for a new business moving in. And before we give them a C of O, we sort of make sure that everything that we said needs to be done is done.
Yeah.
Under section 8, it does talk about inspection procedures. I do think we could list or be it not so vague or open-ended. Once the village has determined that a rental unit is in compliance with all of the ordinances adopted by the village and state law, the inspection required for issuance, then it's satisfied. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Do you want a motion to table, or are we just good?
You can make a motion to table it. That's fine.
Okay. I'll make a motion to table the registration and inspection of rental properties ordinance.
Second.
Support.
Yes.
I'll support that.
Christine, at this time, you mentioned that you're going to get together with Mark and go over all this stuff and then represent it back to us again? Is that what I understand?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
With
That
Mr.
works.
Bomarito and legal. Yes.
That works. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Catherine, can you call the roll on that?
Poznanski,
Poznanski, yes.
President Malzahn,
Yes.
Bartholomew,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Hart,
Art, yes.
Parker.
Parker, yes.
Okay. Motion carries 7-0.
Great. The second ordinance that we took a look at on our agenda was for the blight ordinance. Again, we sent this over to Planning Commission. We know that we've had some problems, especially here in the Central Business District with all of our dumpsters. I still would like to discuss this at our goals and objectives of somehow getting the Central Business District included with our single waste hauler contract. If you walk behind any of the businesses, you'll see 10 or 12 dumpsters that are often overflowing, or residents will just come and deposit their waste goods in them if they are open. It creates a problem with some of our businesses. I don't know that that's the issue. I'm not really sure that I have the answer, but putting the blight elimination ordinance on the books gives a point for our officers to enforce certain areas. This blight ordinance doesn't specifically, talk about the trash bins, but I think it's a good start, because we know that there's some other problems in the residential areas of other blight that needs to be sort of enforced. Having it on the books is just one way to give them the tools to do that. So, any discussion on the blight elimination ordinance?
I'd like to bring up one thing. Skimming through this, and I don't know if it's kind of petty or not, but I just see like under junk, under definitions, and it talks about different things about like old wheels or rims or old household fixtures or whatnot. Should we have something in there that clarifies? Because I see several people that have old sinks in their landscaping, or tires that are painted that they use as planters and stuff like that. And this is clearly calling those people out and saying, yeah, we can't have that because it falls under the definition of junk. So should we clarify somewhere that, blah, 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 with the exception of stuff that is clearly used for landscaping or decoration?
We certainly can do that if that's your suggestion. That's why we're talking about it. So what should we do? What should we change?
Yeah, I'd like to see that added.
Okay.
I mean, there's
So if somebody thinks that a toilet in their flower bed is pretty because they put some pansies in it, we're going to allow that.
Along with toilet paper.
Art is art, right?
Art is okay. Art can be art. I'm not arguing. It's suggestive, but
I mean,
right.
It's got to be clearly determined. It's not just going to be a toilet sitting in the front yard. That's just sitting there with nothing.
I mean, you can't.
I'm not trying to open this up for
aesthetics.
Yeah.
You're giving me ideas for this summer, Justin.
There you go.
Right.
Oh man, I don't know if I want to be that neighbor.
Yeah. No,
I honestly think we got a lot of
been used, tires painted for planters. I've seen them around town myself, so it's hard to say that I'm going to vote on something that you see that I think some of them look pretty good.
Yeah, there's a bed on Main Street because it's a flower bed and it's really cute though.
Right. So
one of the things I would recommend that you consider is in the penalty provision under Section 5. As it's presented, it's a misdemeanor, which is fine. The village has the authority to make a violation a misdemeanor. you may want to consider making it a municipal civil infraction so that somebody can write an officer or the code enforcement, whomever may be enforcing the ordinance, can write a ticket for this as opposed to prosecuting somebody criminally. I know in other contexts you have discussed, and I've mentioned to you that sometimes the misdemeanor penalty is most appropriate because people do not want to be charged with a misdemeanor. It can create a whole set of problems, and so sometimes the enforcement by way of that penalty hanging over somebody's head is best achieved. The enforcement is. Other times, the ability to write somebody a ticket and move on, the financial penalty is sufficient. The is less burdensome to the criminal justice system. And so I'm not saying that one is a better approach than another. I'm simply suggesting that you consider which one you think is most appropriate.
Yeah, that was something else I was going to bring up. So thank you for clarifying that, Mark. I think that was a little excessive myself.
Now, to clarify, in here, people will still be allowed to store their campers on their lots over winter, correct? As long as they're stored nicely, or however it's worded.
Actually, they're not allowed to store their RVs in their driveways.
Right. You have an existing ordinance that addresses that. They have to be so far from the lot line and so far from the house. The storage in the driveway technically is not permitted now.
But it doesn't eliminate those exceptions.
This ordinance doesn't eliminate those? Is that what you're saying? Because
yes.
Saying it
I'm
does
saying
not.
if you follow the current ordinance, that this isn't taking that away, right?
right, you still wouldn't be able to park your RV in your driveway under the blight elimination ordinance or the parking ordinance in which Mark is referencing.
As long as you have the room in your yard, though, you can.
That's what I said. As long as you're in the proper parking, you know, not in your driveway, back in the proper place, this isn't going to change that.
Mr. Clark.
Well, I don't think so, because if you look at the definitions of in section 3 of junk and junk motor vehicles, I'm assuming that somebody's RV, if it's properly licensed and insured, which if it's functional, it would be, then I don't think it falls within the definition. I don't think this ordinance would take away people's right to violate the existing ordinance about not properly parking their RVs and their campers.
Okay. Christine, quick question for you.
Yes.
So if anybody files a complaint at the village, and this, just so neighbor doesn't start fussing with neighbor, would whomever the complaint's filed against, would they get the opportunity to know who filed the complaint against them and the address of that person and the name?
I believe that all of those reports are subject to a FOIA request. So anybody can put a FOIA into the police department and I believe could get that information if it's received by the police department. Some tips do come in and they're anonymous, so we wouldn't have that information.
Oh, we just wouldn't want neighbors getting mad at each other and automatically just toss a box of screws over the fence and say, according to the building part, you know, screws, nails, anything like that is subject to question.
Well, I would think that the property owner who then has the screws tossed onto their yard would make a police report that somebody was doing, you know, some nefarious behavior. And so it would work both ways.
Yeah.
There are certainly some areas.
What'd you say, Mark?
What's that, Mark?
It's a trespass.
Trespass, right.
That's only if they see them.
No. All right, so I'm going to take a look at this blight elimination ordinance, probably also with Mr. Bomarito and Mr. Clark. We'll look at that civil infraction versus misdemeanor. We'll look at the inclusion of some language for some landscaping.
Motion to table?
And then we'll revise that and bring that back at a later date as well.
Christine, if I could just add one more thing under the enforcement. Maybe I missed it in here, but are we giving any type of written warning first and then X amount of days to comply?
Our enforcement officers really do try and go out and just have conversations, give people ample opportunity to come into compliance, because we do find that a lot of times people aren't aware of the ordinances. So it's the general practice that, yes, they would get a verbal and then a written citation. Not always if we know that there's a repeat offender or, a pattern of issues, but that's usually the procedure that's followed.
Could we add that then, maybe then, item D, verbal warning or verbal correspondence given with X amount of days, then a written warning with X amount of days, and then after that, it would be a citation? So someone at least has maybe a month to correct?
I think they already have a month after the first warning. It gives them at least 30 days. And I know the officer that deals with this, she does a very good job. I know some of the people she's had to confront, and like Christine says, it's just a matter of carrying on a conversation and, just trying to encourage the person to get it taken care of. And more oftentimes from what I've heard, it gets taken care of without having to go to court or be ticketed.
I would agree. I didn't see the time frame in there, and I just would like to see it added so there is no discrepancy on a time frame. She might be very consistent, or he may be very consistent with the time frames given after a verbal conversation. But if it's clearly written out, this is the amount of time we're going to allow after a verbal or written warning, then there is no question.
Okay, I'll take a look at that and we'll see where we can fit that in.
Thank you.
All right, so since we had a motion to table the rental inspection, can we get a motion to table the blight ordinance until further review?
I'll make that motion to table the blight ordinance for further review.
I'm sorry, so there was a motion by Parker. Was that support by Fowler?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Roll call, please, Catherine.
Parker,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Poznanski,
Poznanski, yes.
Hart,
Art, yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Bartholomew,
Yes.
President Malzahn.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, we are on to our budget amendments. You received in your packet the full financial review. I just put up on the slide the 6 bullet points of the primarily areas that we're adjusting. The tax revenue recognition from prior year rollback, the DDA contribution moved to the Public Improvement Fund, revenue recognition of property owner sidewalk match, hospitalization expense recognition in building inspection fund, increased retirement expense allocated to sewer fund, and eliminated the lease expense and allocated interest in the motor pool fund. So we do have our accountant, Tim Sadowski is on the line, and also Clerk Trapp, Chief Financial Officer, obviously in the meeting. So we can open it up for discussion or a motion to approve the recommended budget amendment number 2.
I'll start it with a motion to approve the budget amendments as presented.
So we have a motion by Hart,
Support.
support by Bartholomew.
Poznanski,
Discussion or questions?
Poznanski,
Poznanski, you have a question?
yes.
Okay.
Number 2 with the DDA contribution, I thought I saw on the bills that it was given back.
Correct. So there was a miscommunication between the consent judgment agreement ending that we approved in this year's budget. So it was not drafted originally in the right spot. So that's why Tim had to go back and move that to the Public Improvement Fund, because that match that the DDA gave was for the DDA, the lighting project. which is in the public improvement fund.
Okay.
Does
Thank
that
you.
clarify that?
Yes, that makes much more sense.
Okay. Any other questions?
Parker,
Parker, go ahead.
on page 1, just clarification, and maybe it's just the accounting error, I'm not sure, but under the village clerk, and I believe that would be the salary, right? It talks about 78,000, 79,000. I didn't think that was, is that for the office or is that for a salary?
The village adopts its budget on a department level, so that's all the village clerk expenses. Just not this salary. It's salary, benefits, office supplies, anything that has to do with that department.
Copy.
The line item details at the back, if you wanted to see what makes it up, it's like on page 2 of 30 in the detail section. You can see what goes into the departmental total.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I got that. Yeah, did we get all that, Christine or Catherine?
Yes, you were emailed the entire copy, and then in your packet that you got delivered to you were the first 16 pages, which should encompass all the items that are bullet pointed.
Copy.
So you received it 2 ways.
Any other discussion or questions? Okay, hearing none, can you call the roll, please?
Okay, Hart,
Art, yes.
Bartholomew,
Yes.
Fowler,
No.
President Malzahn,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Parker,
No.
Poznansky.
Poznansky, yes.
All right, motion carries 5-2.
Okay, we will move on for discussion of the 2 new business items Parker asked to have added for marijuana business.
Yeah. Okay, for discussion clarification, couple things that I've noticed. When the motion was made to adopt this ordinance, it was with the correction of numbers under the amount of plants. In the revision, it didn't just change, it actually added a whole nother section to that. So I didn't know if that was basically allowed. I know we talked about a correction, or not me personally, you guys did in the meeting I wasn't part of, just making correction to the numbers, but then there was from medical and then they added recreational.
Right, so those numbers came from the state. The number of plants associated with each licenses or each classification of license comes from the state. So the final ordinance should reflect what the state numbers are, but I can clarify that because.
Yeah, no, I guess it was just more so with the motion made with the exception of the correction. I guess it just wasn't worded properly to my understanding, because there's a section added. It wasn't just a correction made to the numbers that was on the draft. So I don't know if that should just be looked at once again, just for discussion. And then if we go back to section 556005 under marijuana business license, we note in here that we're going to allow 2 grows, 2 processors, 1 safety compliance, and 2 transporters. If you carry that back to section, I believe it's 8, it's determined that we're gonna shall award licenses to 2 grows, 2 processors, 2 safeties, and 1 transport. So we have a discrepancy from sections with the amount of licenses that we're going to be issuing.
And that the differences that I'm just hearing you read off are the safety, the number of
Yeah,
licenses
so
for
in
safety.
Section 5005, it says 1 safety, 2 transports. In section 8, it says 2 safeties and 1 transport. So those numbers have been shifted in
Transpose.
one
Okay.
section or the other.
Okay.
So, I mean, that could create some havoc or headache when people are thinking, hey, I'm going to get approved for 2 transports, but in the back, we only approve 1. And then guy B is like, hey, why am I not getting my license? I was the second guy in line.
Okay. So Mark and I can take a look at that.
Yeah, that was it. I just wanted to get those pointed out for that. That's all.
Okay.
Probably need to get those corrected.
And then any other discussion, or we're good with that? Then we can move on
That's
to
it,
your,
unless anyone else has any comments or input.
Well, that was a good catch, though.
okay. So then let's move on to your second addition for the President Pro Tem.
Yeah, so once again, being new, going through the General Village Law Act, I've noticed that we've actually overlooked the appointment of the President Pro Tem because per the law, it says it's supposed to be done as soon to November 20th as possible. So I think we should have done that in December. I know what maybe we've done in the past, but I don't think we're following the law correctly. So I think that we need to make that council appointment, as the law says, it's a council appointment to appoint a President Pro Tem. I know we
Okay,
just,
so if you'd like me to add that to next month's agenda, we can certainly do that. Not a problem.
Can we do that right now?
It's typically followed, I think, by an election year, which we just had. So
well, actually the law, Christine, says that it's supposed to happen every year under the General Village Law Act.
okay,
As close to November 20th as possible.
okay. So
So if everyone's in acceptance, I know Matt's done a good job in the past. I would make a motion to appoint him again.
I second it.
well, again,
Just
Megan's
wanna-
motion was to allow it for discussion only. So let's add it to next month's agenda and then we'll take care of that. Not a
Can you-
problem. I agree. Matt's done a fine job. I don't think he's,
Yeah,
but we'll give him 30 days to change his mind if he wants to back out. So instead of surprising him.
Can we get some references, please?
Yeah, great.
Okay.
That's gonna happen.
So I will add that to March's agenda.
Definitely.
Will-
Yeah,
will
then
you
maybe
also-
we should add that to December's meeting moving forward so that as soon after the 20th of November, we can make sure that we're in compliance with state law.
Yeah, good idea.
All right. That was our last agenda item. So now we're up to public comment on the agenda. Was there anybody left in the meeting who wanted to make a public comment?
While we're waiting for the public, I would like to make a comment.
Okay.
Well, Catherine asked me to redo my comment, not at the bill time. So I would still like to ask, or maybe make the comment that this board should be doing business with our local newspaper. I find it hard to believe that at every time we can't make the deadlines. I don't know what the 2 bills were for this month, but they equal $316 and some change. And I think we could get a better deal at our local newspaper. That's my comment.
Okay. I did ask Catherine to get some quotes from multiple sources so that we could compare what we are currently paying and what it would be to use the local paper. So hopefully I can get those reports and we can make that determination if it would indeed be more costly.
Well, I do have a few numbers. I did make a call. And the last time we did do business with the Record, we put in a synopsis. And we did do an ordinance amendment in there. And for those 2 together, we paid $201.83. So, and I want to say that all of our surrounding municipalities do business with this paper. Bruce, Armada, Ray, Oakland Township, that we should be supporting our local paper and the one that's close to home that most of our people more often would read over the Macomb Daily. Thank you.
Okay. I don't see anybody who has their hands raised. I don't see anything that's in the chat. So Zach, do we have a
Motion
motion
to adjourn?
Actually, before we adjourn, Christine Parker.
I'll draw it back.
I had a gentleman reach out to me and actually sent me an email today in regards to, and I know we briefly talked about the marijuana ordinance, but he was concerned. He said he reached out to the village and wanted to make a presentation in regards to a dispensary, I believe. And my understanding, the response he got was simply, we're not going to entertain that because it doesn't fall into our ordinance. And he told me that, and I, for or against a dispensary is not my question, but did we not hear presentations from people that wanted to do grows before it actually was an ordinance that we approved? So why would we not allow someone the opportunity to speak about a dispensary and gain more information about that process?
If I remember correctly, I'm sorry, this matters. If I remember correctly, they were allowed to speak, but that was probably about 2 or 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago.
Yes.
And at that point in time, the board took a stand that they were dead set against anything like that.
I can respect that, but we also in the past voted no on grow facilities and then let presentations come before us and then adopted an ordinance to allow them. So it's kind of a double standard at this point where we're going to let someone make a presentation for something that we turned down before, and then now we had a presentation, then we put into an ordinance.
But you're talking about 2 different time frames. You're talking somewhat 3 or 4 years ago versus 6 months ago. Things change.
I can respect that.
Attitudes change. You know, Romeo engine plant wasn't closing at that point in time 3 or 4 years ago.
And 100% can respect that. And again, I'm not questioning if we would ever allow that to happen or allow a dispensary to come in. But if we're going to let people talk about grows or transports or processing and then adopt a new ordinance to allow that, we have to allow that to anyone then under that.
And they were allowed to, they made their case in front of the council.
These people did not. They recently came up.
Oh, recently?
The beginning of this month, they wanted to be added from the email I'm reading. They wanted to be added to tonight's meeting for a presentation. And I'm sorry, I'm looking at my phone to read the email. They first talked about it on February 1st. They came in and got the packet, realized it wasn't in there, and then asked for clarification and asked to be added to the agenda tonight to make a presentation.
I think the bigger question or the concern is, can anybody just ask to be put on the agenda for a presentation, or can it be turned down for reasons given?
And so what the direction that we provided that gentleman was that it's public comment and he could come and speak at public comment time, that right now our ordinance did not allow it. Therefore, I thought that was a more appropriate moment for him to address the council, would be under public comment. Certainly was not turned away from speaking to anybody, just not making
all
a
presentations
presentation.
be considered public comment then? How do we differentiate that?
Right.
We need to keep it
right now we have an ordinance that doesn't permit it. So public comment. And if then the board wanted to take action from the public comment and have a formal presentation, we certainly could do that at another meeting.
I guess that's my hesitation, is that when we allowed, a few months ago even, allowed presentations on a grow facility, that was currently at that time against what we had voted on in the past.
But we talked about wanting to entertain that. I certainly wouldn't want a presentation on all different things necessarily. I mean, as far as time and everything, I mean, somebody wants to talk to me about cattle racing or something. I mean,
Well, Bob, if it's something that could potentially bring good to the community, right?
Let them come to public
And
comment.
they wanted to present that.
Listen, if they came to public comment and said, I've got this great idea, they got 3 minutes to give us a sales pitch, to have an agenda. And if they win the council, they go, yeah, we'd like to hear this. That's an appropriate channel, not just anybody, I want to speak to your council.
Bartholomew, I'd like to just, Justin, just so you know, we didn't just allow somebody to come in and to start, entertain something they wanted to do. We had to make a decision. The state was given communities, villages, cities an option. You have to make a decision, folks. You can opt in, you can opt out. So it wasn't a matter of somebody just coming in and saying, "Hey, man, we got this great idea." We were at a point where we had to start moving on this. As far as the dispensaries,
at that time we opted out, and that's my only discrepancy is that we had not allowed that. We opened up for presentation, and then we adopted an ordinance. So, I mean, I understand if we wanted to give him the opportunity. I'm actually looking at the email, and I believe his name is on the list tonight. I don't know if he can hear us. If we want to give him the opportunity to talk now during public comments, and then we can maybe address or look at adding that to a future meeting for a presentation.
Did he send the email just to you, Justin, or
I think
what email?
Yeah, I got an email this afternoon. Someone, I think maybe a colleague of his had approached me, and then I got this email tonight it was at 6:30.
So he emailed me, and I gave him an answer. Then he spoke directly to the clerk, and then there was an email exchange as well. And at both times, I believe he was directed to speak under public comment at this meeting and given the links to join the meeting.
Yeah,
So,
maybe he misunderstood that process. Maybe he thought he wasn't going to be allowed to present, but I see him on. I don't know, Steve, if you can hear us. Did you want to talk during public comments now?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, I never did exchange any emails with Catherine or Christine. I simply made a phone call, and I think Kathleen talked to Christine and got back to me via a voicemail. So I didn't really know what the process was, and I was under the impression mistakenly that the village was looking at dispensaries, transports, grows, processing, all of that. And when I went to the village offices, when I looked at the packet the next day, I discovered there wasn't dispensaries allowed. So that's what I was trying to figure out, why dispensaries were not allowed when the other businesses were, and wanted to kind of come to the meeting and find out what the objections were to that and see if we could solve some of that. I've been involved in designing and building many of these dispensaries, and myself and a couple of partners would like to come to Romeo with one, and wanted to find out what that process to get the ordinance possibly expanded and changed to allow for that.
So obviously, we didn't come to our decision to adopt the ordinance. One, it wasn't majority board vote, and we had lengthy discussion over many months of how we were going to proceed with this through several different drafts that also went to the Planning Commission for review. And so the decision collectively, ultimately that passed was to allow for the grow, safety, transport, not provisioning or micro businesses. And that's how the ordinance was then drafted and put in place. So that's how we came to that decision after weighing our options and what did we feel with our residents' input was the best interest of our community.
Okay, what were the major problems with dispensaries or objections to?
Well, again, I don't want to, this is public comment. So I appreciate your question, and you and I can absolutely have a conversation outside of this meeting. But if you wanted to make another public comment to the Board of Trustees, you can do that. But this is your 3 minutes, right?
Right, thanks. All right.
What would be the process?
One comment I would make is our meetings are taped. Our meetings are taped. You could go back and look at the discussion.
we've had all those. Yeah, they are available on the MIT TV, so you can look at those.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely.
Could we allow future presentations with, updated laws and ordinances that are in place with dispensaries to just entertain even a 5-minute presentation from Steve? I forgot your last name, Steve. I apologize.
No, that's okay. Dumont.
Is that, I just wonder,
Well, Bartholomew, Justin, you've been voting no against having medical, the facilities out in the industrial park.
No, I haven't.
That's me.
I wasn't involved with that voting process.
But you've spoken against it. And
No, I have not.
it seems like you have, but
I may have questioned some discrepancies.
Okay.
Yes, but I've never opposed a for or against, Nate. And I wasn't even on the board when that was voted on, so I don't know how you could say I voted against.
Well, I'm sure that this is something we can address like at future meetings, but we made it clear a few years ago that we're not interested in any dispensaries in town, so that's all.
All right, is there any other public comments?
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion on the floor by Fowler to adjourn. I'm sorry, who supported that?
Support?
Parker.
Okay, support by Bartholomew. Catherine, can you call the roll?
Fowler,
Yes.
Bartholomew,
Yes.
Edwards. Edwards,
Yes.
President Milzon,
Yes.
Poznansky,
Postansky, yes.
Hart,
Art, yes.
Parker.
Good night, everybody.
Yes.
Motion carries. Meeting adjourned.
Good night.
Good night.